Hey guys, welcome back. I'm back with another tournament report today. Just came back from a modern local tourney, and yeah, I just want to talk about some of my matchups, how I do, some cards I sided in, played against, and how I played, and how I did overall. So today is Monday, the 8th of August, I believe, and yeah, so we had a pretty decent turnout today. I think we had about 24, 26 players, so relatively a good size sample, I guess, larger than our normal turnouts, which is great. I like playing in a big tourney with different people and different decks and stuff like that. So it's always good to have people come out. Anyways, so yeah, but I'm playing the same deck. Basically just trying to master the ins and out of it. And because I spent so much money on this deck, I don't think I really have another much more money to build another deck. I thought about actually switching this deck a little bit to the reanimated version, but then that means I have to buy more Solitudes and Grief, and not really ready to commit to that just quite yet. And I'm still in the middle of kind of decking out and falling out this deck, so um, gonna be playing this deck for the time being, and I always like control, so it does everything I want it to do, and I don't really plan on getting playing a new deck anytime soon yet. Anyways, yeah, so 4 rounds today. I got essentially first place. So let's do the round breakdown first. I'll kind of talk about um, my matches real quick, and then I'll go into more detail about them and what happened while I was playing. So, yeah, 4 rounds. Um, First game was against Mardu, Emrakul, Griselbrand combo. I think I played it last week, but last week I didn't even see the Emrakul. But this week was a lot different, and this week was very interesting. So talk about that in a second. Game two I played against Amulet Titan. Yeah, game three I played against Mono Red. It's an older deck. I don't know the name of it, but it's Mono Red Control, I guess, or Mono Red Impulse. Because they would play a bunch of Impulse mana cards, and then try to play like a really big value thing, or try to lock you out of the game. So that was the deck. I'm not really too sure what the name of it is. I know it's an older deck that used to be played. I didn't haven't played Modern for that long, so I don't really haven't played against that deck in recent times. So from the pilot was saying he was saying that the deck is an older list, so I believe him. So anyway, so that was game three, and then game four, I ended up not playing game four because game four, it was only me and one other guy that were undefeated, and we decided to split because he wanted to go eat and I was ready to go home anyways. I was kind of tired, so we just split the top pricing amongst both of us. But he asked first, so he asked if I wanted to split. So we didn't know what we're I didn't know what he was playing. He doesn't know what I was playing. I agreed to split, so I didn't have any issues with that. So yeah, but after we agreed, he said he was playing full color Omnath, and I told him I was playing essentially blue white control. So okay, cool. No worries. We split, went home, but yeah, he was undefeated. I was undefeated, and everyone else had X1s at least. So they've all lost a game. So we decided to split the pricing, get promo packs, and go home. In terms of if we were to actually play it, I would say the ball would definitely be in his court more, just because it's four color control or four color money pile. They generally have a better matchup against blue white control. Blue white control really has a tough time keeping up with the value that Omnath and that particular deck generates, and the amount of threats they can put on the board, and the fact that they can also play stuff like Magnus and Blood Moon. So I'd say four color Omnath is prized to do a lot better against my deck. And I've practiced against it, and I've done well. And I've done I played against many different versions of Omnath decks, four color Omnath, from Urian to non-Urian builds, and each pilot applies it differently. And majority of the time is I either do really really well, where I kind of crush them, or I get crushed myself. There's never really a back and forth. I want to say, like, it's kind of rare. Maybe game one or two is it's back and forth, but after that, once you sight it in, it kind of swings in like one direction. Like, you can kind of tell and judge when one player is just really really ahead and the other player is not gonna be able to catch up. It's one of those kind of matches, and I honestly just it's one of those things that it's like, you win the die roll, maybe you'll pull ahead quick enough. Otherwise, it's a rough matchup. Anyway, so game one, it's the deck that I played against last week. But last week I essentially kind of crushed my matchup. This week was a lot harder. This week, game one, I think I got kind of land screwed a little bit. My lands were really really awkward, and he was also playing Field of Ruin, so he was kind of screwing up with my mana base. And so that's the thing with three colors, like, oh crap, you gotta choose. I had like a bunch of 3 mana spells in my deck, or in my hand. I had like Archmage Charms, Teferi, and I think Kazagayo, and I had to choose like certain color combinations in order to kind of like choose one of those spells to cast on turn 3. And so it's one of those things. What happened was, I think he just pulls ahead on lands after a while, and then he goes breach through, and then he goes Emrakul, and then just attacks me, annihilates my my lands. I think I only had like 3 or 4 lands. He was on like 6 or maybe 7 lands, and he annihilates my board, and I was down to like 2 health, so I just scoop it up. So game 1 was pretty bad. Game 2, it was interesting. So it was more back and forth, but it was one of those games where I just brain farted, and I was already tilted from game 1. So turn 4, he does the same thing. He breached through. He de-rests me a few times. Like, he knows what I have in my graveyard or in my hand. I think he de-rests, and then he also surgical extracted me twice. I think he surgical extracted my Kai's Guile, I think, and he surgical extract my counter spell. I think he picked them off with like the rest, and so like my hand's kind of like weak. He knows I have a Solitude. For some reason, when he breached through, and he attacks me with Emrakul, I didn't Solitude it. I don't know why. I guess I just brain farted, and I let the Emrakul Annihilator trigger go through and annihilate essentially all my lands. And then Emrakul goes away after that. So I'm down to, I think, like 4 life. I was at 19. I think it cracked once, and then down to 4 life. Most of my good removal stuff was gone. I'm down to like 0 lands, a couple cards in hand, and he's pretty ahead. So at that point, I should scoop it up. So I decided, I'm just gonna continue playing until he attacks for lethal, because we have so much time on the board, on the clock left. I decided just to play it out, and so we play it out. I top deck a land, turn after turn. I think like 2 or 3 times in a row I was able to top deck a land. And I was fetching for lands, and I was being really careful with my life. I was just making sure, because I didn't see any direct damage, so I'm not afraid of him bolting me. So I was really careful. I forgot to talk about the side deck. Let me talk about that right after this one. But yeah, I was really careful with my life. I was like, I was down to 1, but I had eventually I was able to get assemble 4 lands, and I was able to start top decking lands. And he just wasn't able to apply much pressure after that. I guess he just kind of burnt through a lot of his resources in his hand. He was trying to dig through stuff. And I was able to get out like some Snapcasters, and eventually was able to regain control of the board regain control of the game. He does try to do a few more like last pushes to try to put another Emrakul or Griselbrand onto the board just to draw more cards and replenish his hand. But I was able to kind of stop that. So I ended up winning game two by just a sheer, I think, 15-minute grind game, 15-20-minute grind game, just because I was being an idiot and I let the Emrakul go through and annihilate my lands, and I had a Solitude in hand. I did have a white card to pitch for it too. But yeah, like the game two, just a lot went wrong, but I was able to come back and actually win that game, surprisingly. So that was kind of like both my not proudest moment and also my most proud moment, of the day right there. But it gets even more wild in game three. So let me talk about the side deck real quick, and show you what I think I put in and what I took out, to kind of help you guys, if you ever did play against that deck. So I think I go, let's see. I think I just do this. I don't think I put anything else in. Yeah. So I put in Teferi, Beetles, Spell Bombs, and Kaya's, because I know he revives stuff from the graveyard. So, and so I wanted to get rid of his graveyard. So Spell Bomb, Kaya's guy all helps with that. Teferi, I think I wanted to stop some of his interaction in case he was playing a lot of interaction. Or something like that, so I wanted to play that Teferi, and then Beetles for like the breach through and stuff like that. Combo decks in general. Like if you're playing against a combo deck and they play a lot of like spells, you always almost side in the Beetles, just to deal with that, which is really nice. And I think what I took out all the prismatic endings. I took out fatal pushes, marches. Oh yeah, so I tried one fatal push in the deck just because I wanted to see if I can do the Snapcaster trick. It never came up. I never saw a fatal push the entire day today, so I can't even say if it was useful or not. But the idea with fatal push is if you had a fatal push in the graveyard and they're attacking you with like a CMC4 creature or something like that, you could snap in with the Snapcaster, block it, Snapcaster dies, then you can push from the grave and trigger the revolt. So that was the thing I was trying to do. It never came up. Fatal Push never saw play. I'm just playing the one copy of, and I took out one March for it. So I might just put March back in, honestly. But yeah, so it never came up. Anyways, I took out all that, put this in. So game three was wild. I think I didn't get much as land screwed, but what happened was I was just kind of not getting any like crazy threats, and so the game goes on for a while because we had like 24 minutes left on the clock since our first game was like, I don't know, 20 minutes long, and or game one was like 5 minutes long, game two was like 20 minutes or something like that. So we had still had plenty of time, but the gist of it was he was able to cast Emrakul 4 times, like hard cast Emrakul 4 times, and I survived all 4 of them, which I thought was insane there. Like, because he was playing Yawgmoth's Urborg, Urborg of Yawgmoth, the Tomb of Yawgmoth, plus Coffers. So he had a ton of mana. He always had those 2 combos. He had Profane Tutor, and a couple other things to tutor out those cards, and he always had Cabal Coffers with like a bunch of lands and Yawgmoth on the board. So he was able to tap for like easily 15 mana a turn. So he casts his like a bunch of tutors, gets casts his the Emrakul from hand, gets the extra turn, all that. However, I survive it, namely because of this one card right here, Kai's Guile. Like, oh my god, dude! Without this card, I think I drew 3 of them that game. Every time he tried to like Emrakul, I just Kai's Guile, force it to sacrifice and then make tokens. I wasn't too sure of how many Emrakul he was playing. In hindsight, I think I should have forced him to sacrifice it and exile Emrakul, so it doesn't go back to the deck. I wasn't too sure if he was playing like maybe 1 copy, 2 copies. I don't know. I don't know his deck list, so I I was making the tokens to try to apply pressure, um, which I needed to try to close out the game because I was slowly like I only have so many finite resources eventually before I run out. So I was trying to add a clock to him and not let him continually get like 15, 20 mana a turn to cast whatever he wanted. So I was able to Kaya's Guild. Um, I was able to Solitude. I think one of them. I did eventually Kaya's Guild and exile his graves, so I did remove one Emrakul from the game. Um, so I'm not too sure. I didn't see his I should have asked what he was, how many Emrakul he was running at the end of the game, but I thought that was maybe a little weird, so I didn't say anything. But either way, I for 4 turns he or however many turns, he was able to just keep casting Emrakul over and over and over, and I just never let Emrakul stick on the board. So Kai's Guile and Solitude definitely helped out with that, because otherwise I don't think there's anything else in the deck that would be able to deal with Emrakul. Maybe Wandering Emperor, but by the time he attacks with Wandering Emperor, it'd be too late, because then yes, you can remove the Emrakul, but he would annihilate your board. So yeah, at that point, it's GG. But yeah, Kai's Guile definitely. I don't regret putting in like 4 copies of this. I was able to see him, and I was able to just abuse the living crap out of it by just forcing him to sacrifice the Emrakul, exiling stuff, doing what I need to do, and kept me in the game long enough so that I basically can control the board, and then proceed to attack for lethal. I think I flashed in the Emperor, had 2 Spirit tokens and a Snapcaster, so I had I think a total of 8 power or so on the board, and I was able to clock him for like 2 to 3 turns there. So yeah, so that was game 1. It was a crazy game. Like people were watching and they were just kind of like wow, kind of jaw dropping that the fact that I survived so many Emrakul casts, on top of dealing with also dealing with Griselbrand and stuff like that. The reason why I couldn't take control as much as I did, last week, is I think I wasn't really seeing my counter spells, or this time he kind of played around the counter spell. He forced me to, in awkward situations and stuff like that. He used his Field of Runes to force my lands into being awkward colors and stuff like that. So he was attacking my lands, he was attacking my hands. He was being more progressive to set up his overall win condition, where last week I think he wasn't drawn that well, or I just had all the the answers at that time. So yeah, this week was definitely different. It was a little bit more definitely more close, and I was sweating a lot during the match. So but that was game 1. Probably really good, really fun game there. Game 2, it was against Titan, Amulet Titan. And game 1, I get kind of land screwed. Don't really get really much good colors. I think I was like maybe 3 or 4 lands in. He wasn't really doing too much. I got rid of one of his amulets, but he gets another one off of Urza's Saga. He managed to, I think, Cavern of Souls, and then play Cultivator Giant or Colossus, and that essentially won him the game, because I think he drew like, I don't know, he had like 8 lands in hand, or 8. He was able to reveal 8 lands or something like that, and draw like 7 cards, and he had 1 amulet on the board, and the lands came in untapped. He had Valakut. He basically had everything. So he kind of just blew me out game 1. Like, I didn't really have an answer to all of that, especially when he had Cavern of Souls, and my hand wasn't that great. I was not really able to interact with much of his stuff. I did have counter spells and stuff, but it didn't really matter, because Cavern of Souls kind of just negates that whole my whole game plan right there. So he blows me out game 1. Game 2, what I usually side in against Titan is I believe I side this in this, and maybe a Teferi. Yeah, I think that's honestly it. And maybe Voidwind, I don't quite remember, or maybe a Fracturing Gust. I might have sided in a Fracturing Gust. Idea behind the Fracturing Gust is if you get to that late point in the game where maybe you're stopping his Titan, but he's switching to a game plan where he's trying to make a bunch of constructs off of the Urza sagas, then this is where the gust would come in, is to kill the constructs, to kill the amulets, maybe kill other stuff. So that's the idea behind this card. I put it in just in case. I never saw it, so it didn't matter. But what I took out was I think some of my planeswalker. I took out a lot of planeswalkers to be more reactive rather than proactive. I think I took out maybe like my Jace, Teferi. I took out the Kai's Guile. Kai's Guile, while it's a great card, not too great this particular matchup. Because if they can make it the constructs, your Kai's Guiles is not really that handy against constructs. So I took out constructs. I think I took out fatal pushes. I leave in prismatic ending because you want to get rid of the amulets if you can. And same thing with March. March is great against the amulet, and it's also good against the saga. So I left in the March. Obviously, Solitude's pretty good against Titan. It helps you deal with it. I think I leave in the Dam. I think both Dams, just to be able to snipe a Titan or blow up the board if he's going too wide with the constructs. And maybe I took out maybe one Snapcaster, maybe a Opt or something like that, because I figured he was gonna put in some graveyard hate. Maybe he's gonna play in some endurance, or maybe he has Bajuka Bob, or something like that. So yeah, game two went pretty well, I want to say. I think I saw like two Aether Gusts. Aether Gust this matchup was MVP. Like I was able to just do some crazy stuff with this thing. In terms of just like basically not letting my opponent play the game at all. I think at one point, he has Cavern, and he's calling out his stuff with Caverns. Like I'm like okay, I have a bunch of Aether Gusts in hand. I think at one point he goes Cavern, or he goes Pack Negation, gets a Dryad or something. Tries to play the Dryad. I Aether Gust the Dryad. So the turn after that, he had to pay for the pack costs. Then I think he tries to play a Titan or something like that. I go Subtlety, and it was just I was able to clock him in like 3 turns or something. I think Subtlety. I hit him a few times, twice with Subtlety. I think, yeah, I hit him twice with Subtlety, and then turn after that I had Celestial, and then Celestial Colonnade, and I eventually was able to resolve a Teferi, the big Teferi, and so I started to animate the Celestial and the Subtlety, swinging for 7, so he's at 7, so I clock him from 20 to 14 to 7, and then basically the game was over. He drew, and he couldn't really figure out an out for Subtlety and the Celestial, and or deal with my big Teferi. So that was really good. I did really well game 2. Game 3 was, I think, even nuttier, for me at least. Like I think I drew 2 more Aether Gusts or something like that, or at least 1 copy of Aether Gust and a Snapcaster. So he goes first, and he has to mulligan to 5, I think, to try to get whatever he wanted. I wasn't too sure. I kept my hand. I think I had Aether Gust, Teferi, and like a Snapcaster and like 4 lands. So I was like, okay, I can play this hand. It can be a little awkward, but I think I can slow the game down. I can control the game with Aether Gust and Snapcaster. So he goes, he does his thing. I think I draw like a bit prismatic ending on, and I think ending one of his amulet. I don't quite remember, but I draw another Aether Gust. So I think at this point was where it got really wacky. So at least for him, in terms of like how awkward it was. So he eventually assembles enough mana to do the Titan on turn. I don't know. I don't know what turn it is, but it's at least he has 6 mana with Cavern. So I think he has Simic Growth Chamber, a Cavern of Souls, and some other 3 lands. I don't remember. Anyway, so he attempts to cast the Titan with the with Souls, and I Aether Gust it. So he puts it on top. My turn. I play him with some cards. He goes again. I do another Aether Gust. He puts it on top, and then I go. I put some Planeswalkers or something like that. He tries to cast Titan again. I go Snapcaster, Aether Gust, put it back in his top of his deck. And then I use, I think I had a 3-mana Teferi. My turn comes down. I use 3-mana Teferi, bounce my Snapcaster back to my hand after attacking him and everything. And at that point, the game was essentially over. There was not much he can do. It's a very slow clock though. I think I was only hitting him with like maybe a Snapcaster, maybe something else. Really slow clock on my end, but I think it was like 3 or 4 turns of him just top decking the Titan and trying just to bring out the Titan to resolve the Titan in order to even doing anything. I think at one point I do let him resolve Titan because I think I run out of Aether Gusts and I didn't have Subtlety, so he does resolve the Titan at the very end of the game. But at that point, I think he was just so low on health, and I also had a Solitude in my hand, so I let the Titan resolve. So he's looking through his land, trying to figure out if he can survive it. Because I think at this point he's maybe down to, I want to say about maybe 10 health, less than that, maybe 8. 7 to 10 health. He was pretty low, and my board was getting slightly bigger and bigger, and I think I also had a tapped Hall of the Storm Giant that was going to be, reanimating relatively soon. So, yeah, that was it. He just couldn't keep up with the my cards that I kept just locking him out of the game with the Aether Gustus. So that was really good. Definitely MVP there. Like, if I haven't convinced you to use Aether Gust, this today should convince you to use Aether Gust, because the next game gets even wackier. So I win game or round 2. I win round 2 2-1. So I 2-1 game 1, 2-1 game 2. So it wasn't as clean of a sweep like last week, but so game round 3 I play against the Mono Red Impulse deck, and yeah, I was not prepared for what happened. So some decisions I made here, I think I played to the best decisions I could have made during the matchup. But even then, through some of my best decisions, things got a little out of control. So just for example, okay, so I open up something like this. It doesn't really matter too much, right? So it's this plus 4 other cards, right? And I think I do get a counter spell. I also have a counter spell in hand, so something like this. So main choices here. There's 2 choices you can do, right? So one, you can just play Hall of the Storm Giant and play the opt, and maybe opt for something. Or you go Flooded Strand, and then you crack it. You can either crack it for a Shockland, or maybe crack it for an island, or maybe you crack it for the Tri-land. I normally crack for Tri-land almost every single time, unless I know I'm playing against a Blood Moon deck. At this point, I had zero information on what my opponent was playing. So, because I didn't know what he was playing, I assumed it was safe to play Hall of Storm Giant. It doesn't really reveal what I'm playing. It doesn't really tell him what I'm doing. And it's one of those lands that you do indeed want to play as soon as possible. Now, reason I do this is because I have also Counterspell in the hand. So, I wanted to be able to use both this on turn 1 and this on turn 2 to kind of curve out. Since I don't really have much information on what my opponent's doing, I thought this was like the most reasonable way to go. You go Hall, opt, next turn you play Flood it, and then you have a counter spell up. So that's ideally the decision I was making. What I didn't know was that I just saw 1 mountain. Okay, so that's doesn't just be suspicious yet. Maybe he's playing burn. He just didn't draw a burn card yet, or a 1 mana, threat. So okay, that's fine. I pass turn. He plays another mountain. Then he plays the impulse mana, gives him 3 red, and then I suddenly realize he's gonna play Blood Moon on me, and he casts his Blood Moon. Now, unfortunately, I'm not. I'm not a far seer. I can't see the future. I can only try to predict it. And so he blood moons me, and now I don't really have anything in my hand. I got like I think a shock land maybe, and a flooded strand, and whatever else. So I do try to opt. I do try to continue to play the game to see if I can draw into one or two of my basics. I do draw a prismatic ending, but for me to beat Blood Moon, I needed to draw my my plains and either an island or a swamp to give me 3 colors so I can beat Blood Moon. Now, I don't see any of that, so I think he plays like a Chandra. He was kind of out of steam because he's playing a lot of like impulse mana stuff, so he kind of burns through his hand really quickly. So he doesn't do too much, and I was just trying to sit there and just passing, trying to draw my my basics, hoping I can draw at least 2 of them and I'll be able to out the Blood Moon. Unfortunately, he plays 4 mana Chandra. We keep going. I draw like 5-6 cards deep into my deck. I am playing lands for turn, but they're all mountains at this point. I have 0 basics. He eventually ults with Chandra, the 4 mana one. So every time he casts a spell, he pings for 5. We keep going for another 2-3 turns, and he eventually was able to ping me down, and I just scoop it up. So that was pretty horrible. That's like really unlucky. Being able to barely get my first land out, and he already blood moons me. So not much you can do about it. It is what it is. So game 2 goes way better for me. Now let's see what I sided in. So this is my full side deck, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so against a mono red type of deck where I know they're trying to just blood moon me to death, and I did see a couple of planeswalkers. And I think this is what I put in. I'm not too sure. So I put this in. So Aether Gust is a must. It definitely is a must if you're playing against a Blood Moon deck. Like, this is your 2 mana out, 1 blue. So you just need an island. So this is your one way to out a Blood Moon. If you don't play Aether Gust against a Blood Moon deck, you're gonna have a rough time. What I took out is I took out some planeswalkers I thought that weren't gonna be seeing any play. I think I took out the Emperors. I took out Jace. And maybe a big Teferi. Things that I didn't think I was gonna have time to cast. I took out like Damned because I didn't see any creatures. I figure he was gonna play a Magnus, so I do keep in this. I keep in Solitude and Subtlety for the reason that if he does play Magnus over Blood Moon, I can invoke it. I can invoke the Solitude to get rid of Magnus. I can invoke the Subtlety to put Magnus top or bottom. That way, it gives me a fighting chance, and it doesn't require any mana to cast. So I do keep those in. But yeah, I think that's all I take out is just some of that. Some of the more expensive stuff from my deck, and I want to play more reactive because I'm playing. I'm expecting more combos and stuff from him. So I'm playing vetoes. I'm playing the these I do see Chandra and a couple other planeswalkers. Play this just in case he's playing some sort of I don't know. I guess this is also an out to Blood Moon, so maybe if you have the mana, you can cast him and keep upticking to Fairy. And if you do cast a Blood Moon, you can bounce the Blood Moon eventually. And same thing with Void Ren. Void Ren is if you don't have a counter up and you have Esper colors, they play Blood Moon. You can just tap your mana for white, black, blue, and then let the Blood Moon resolve, and then spend that mana, and then Void Ren the Blood Moon right after that. So that was the idea behind Void Ren. And so yeah, so he goes first game 3, and he does the exact same thing. He goes, land. This time I have a land. I have Flooded Strand, and I have two. I think I had this. I had Mystic Gate and Sunken Ruins as my opening lands. So he goes first, plays a mountain. I go. I definitely play a strand. He goes. He plays the same combo. Plays another mountain. Does the impulse mana. Drops the blood moon on me. I responded to the cast of the blood moon by cracking my land for an island. I had to choose between an island or a plains. I chose an island because I have a higher chance of outing the blood moon than if I did it with a plane. So I go island. My turn. I draw. I do top deck the freaking Aether Gust by a miracle. So I go Mystic Gate and I pass. He goes third land, doesn't do anything, passes. I go Aether Gust and then bounce the Blood Moon back to his top or bottom. He decides to put it on the top. Okay, I'm like, all right, cool. My turn. I draw. I play a Sunken Ruins. I think I drew another land or something. It didn't matter. But I had a Dolan's Veto, so I was good to go. I passed my turn. He casts his Blood Moon. I Dolan's Veto, and then I think that's where the game kind of just goes for me, because I was at that point. Once he couldn't resolve the Blood Moon again safely, I took control of the game, and he exhausts a lot of his resources to try to put threats onto the board. He tries to play some Planeswalker. He tries to play Fury, things like that. And I just kept countering it. Or when he did resolve the Fury, I didn't really have anything on the board. He was trying to just do damage at that point. So he plays Fury. I tap my mana, Void Rend the Fury. My turn. I just go off from there. I think he does another Fury. I Solitude the Fury, and yeah, it just it kind of just went downhill for him from there. After he couldn't resolve the Blood Moon anymore. So yeah, that's why I think Aether Gust is like a must. It's your singular out to a Blood Moon, to Magnus. It outs Caverns of Souls, especially if you're playing against Titan. All their threats are green cards, so you're always gonna Aether Gust. A Dryad, you're gonna Aether Gust Titan. Maybe a Endurance, maybe a Cultivator Giant. It's just all of them are green, and when they do cast it, they always call Caverns of Souls with it, so you're not gonna be able to counter anything. So you want to be able to hit their spells while they're on the stack. Don't let it resolve. These fives are definitely for that. Not letting it resolve. Now if you're playing against Emrakul or Ulamog or something like that, not much you can really do at that point. They cast Emrakul, it triggers blah blah blah. They get their extra turn, on the cast. So against those type of decks, there's not much you can do. You just have to hope that they with their turn doing nothing with the Emrakul or doing nothing with the Ulamog. They cast Ulamog, they exile something. They usually gonna exile your lands if you don't have anything on the board. They cast hard cast the Emrakul. Just make sure you have mana open that you can respond to the Emrakul. Most people will play Solitude. That's your one out to the Emrakul if you're not playing Kaya's Guile. In my case, I was playing Kaya's Guile, so I had a real easy out to Emrakul. Emrakul's got protection, but Sacrifice doesn't care. So that was my out. That's how I kept Emrakul at bay for 4 turns, or 4 casts of it, and survived all of them. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Is just like, as a control player, you have to know there's certain cards that are just gonna resolve, and you just have to deal with it somehow, or try to not let it resolve by working around some of the your weaknesses. Like, since you have a bunch of counter spells, you're gonna want something that doesn't technically counter Subtlety, and Aether Gust doesn't technically counter, which is great. Now if you're playing against Blood Moon, you're gonna need some effective way to remove Blood Moon without disrupting the rest of your game plan, and also still having good side cards. So Aether Gust did that for me here. Subtlety, or Solitude for Magnus the Moon, stuff like that. So there's just a couple things you gotta pay attention to, and just make sure you pick up on those hints. Last week I lost to Rhinos because I was playing really greedily. This week I was playing a little bit more conservative, and I was definitely trying to play more responsive. I was just kept keeping my mana open, passing turn. I wasn't pulling the trigger or anything. I was just kind of waiting, seeing where my opponent's hand is, gauging how strong their hand is. So that's the other thing is when you play, you kind of have to guess how strong your opponent's hand might be. Maybe they have a really good hand. Maybe they have some cards to play, and then you kind of have to figure out when they do play that card if you want to counter it or not. You have to have an idea of what they're trying to do, which really helps. And hopefully that's when you do decide to counter it, it's the right card. But yeah, in this week's scenarios that I ran into, it definitely tested my a bit of a lot of it was luck, and also a lot of it was just kind of sitting back, observing, making sure I'm controlling the board, I guess, or just kind of anticipating my opponent's moves and trying to counter it. And I think that worked really well for me. Like I anticipate against Titan, I anticipated they were going to play caverns, and I had a game plan on how to kind of deal with caverns and how to deal, force them in a certain not tempo matchup where we're trying to out tempo each other, and I was just locking him down against Mono Red. I had to figure out how to deal with Blood Moon consistently, or play around it, and then against combo, Eldrazi, I just had to cast my cards carefully, making sure I keep the Eldrazi at bay while trying to also build up enough permanence on the board that I can deal damage or clock my opponent. In all the scenarios, I do act as the aggro player occasionally, especially against Titan. I aggroed him against the Griselbrand guy, Mardu combo. I wasn't really aggroing. I didn't really have a strong hand, a strong creatures enough to aggro him, but I was able to keep it at bay long enough where I was doing enough poke damage to eventually close out the game and go from there. And then against Mono Red, I just made sure as long as they don't resolve Blood Moon on me or like a Magnus or something, I should be fair game. I should be able to beat the rest of his deck with just pure counter spells and removal, and that's what happened. So yeah, so I hope you guys kind of learned something from there, from my experiences. I wish I could have recorded some of my games. Now I don't have any camcorders or anything quite set up yet to record games. I know my locals, they do record some games, but I think they namely record Legacy, because they got one of the largest Legacy scenes in SoCal here. So unfortunately, I don't think they'll let me use their setup to record modern games, but I wish I could. So for now, I'll maybe eventually I'll get a GoPro or something, just like strap it to myself or something like that, and then ask my opponent for permission to kind of film more match. But for now, all I got is really my words here, and hopefully that's good enough. But anyways, hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time.